But right now, let's go to Damien. Damien called in first, but he's from South Carolina. Wants to talk about wildfires. Let's go to somebody in Texas first. Let's go ahead and go to John in Texas on the wildfires. Go ahead. You're welcome to be on the show.
Hi, Alex.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, one thing I noticed about this drought since it started, and I can only talk for the Houston area, is the lack of chemtrails in the sky. Except the few times we've had a brief shower here, maybe like 15, 20 minutes, I would see maybe 1, 2 chemtrails in the sky, and either that night or the next day, we get a brief shower. But other than that, no chemtrails. Before the drought, they chemtrailed the crap out of the skies just about every day. But when the drought came in here to the high pressure center, no chemtrails.
Well, here's what we know, John. What we know is that there is weather modification going on. The government admits they have those programs, but the details are classified. That's part of the problem having a secret government. It not only breeds corruption and misappropriation of funds and people getting on power trips. I mean, duh, such common sense. But it just allows these people to engage in all sorts of bizarre activity, and then we just have to wonder what's going on. Any other points you'd like to make?
No, just to the fact that since the last couple of years, when we've had all this weather, the record tornadoes, the record floods, the record everything, I mean, the destruction has been so bad. I mean, the Chinese could have sent a fleet of bombers over here, and they couldn't have did any less damage than what's been done. And but all this stuff is record-setting. The news people get on there and say, "Oh, we never seen this many tornadoes in one night. We ain't never seen floods like this before."
But that's not true. It's not true, John. I know they say that. They've never recorded this many tornadoes because they never had Doppler everywhere to pick up every tornado that took place. They say it's the worst drought ever, but actually the one in the 50s was even worse than what's happening now. What they do is they hype it. You know, they say that it's not normal to have hurricanes hit New York. I looked that up. They say that the water level's rising. Turns out it's dropping. They've now had to admit that. I'm not saying you're wrong. You're right that they're saying it's record-setting. And if it continues for another year, it will be the worst drought recorded in modern history here in this area. But what do you think the Dust Bowl did? I mean, that caused millions of people to have to move out of the Midwest. 7 million died from malnutrition associated with it. That's a major university study. 7 million died from something similar to what we're seeing. High winds, no rain. I appreciate your call. When was the Dust Bowl? That was in the 20s. In fact, look up the point. 7 million died in Great Depression, or 7 million died from Dust Bowl. I understand that you're saying it's record-setting, so the government must be doing it. And they may be. But just like government claims they can protect you from everything, they can't protect you. They never have protected people. It's our responsibility to protect ourselves. But we can't even protect ourselves from an act of God. A tornado, a hurricane. You can make reasonable preparations. You can have a storm cellar. Why do you think everybody had a storm cellar in the old days? Now we just go off the news and hope it protects us. There are not more tornadoes, ladies and gentlemen. There have always been tornadoes up and down Tornado Alley. There have always been tornadoes in New York. I saw the news 2 weeks ago say, we've never had tornadoes. It's global warming. I went and looked it up. They've had tornado after tornado. A lot of times on the East Coast, they'd call them a black squall. A tornado coming in out of the ocean. What do you think a squall does? Yeah, there's the Dust Bowl. Blow that up for me, please. The Dust Bowl, or the Dirty 30s, no, they had a little one in the 20s too, was a period of severe dust storms causing major ecological and agricultural damage to American and Canadian prairie lands from 1930 to 36. In some areas, until 1940. The phenomenon, what do you think Merle Haggard moved to California when he was a little kid, born in a boxcar traveling there, was, I'm an Okie from Muskogee, was caused by severe drought coupled with decades of extensive farming without crop rotation. Yep. Fallow fields, cover crops, or other techniques prevent wind erosion. Texas, 150 years ago, they reported 6-7 foot tall grass, giant flowers everywhere. The cows were like in heaven, but the cows and the sheep ate it down to the ground. and then the topsoil ran off, and now it looks like the surface of a volcanic moon. Okay, let's go ahead and take another call here. Let's go ahead and talk to Janice in Texas. You're on the air. Welcome.
Hi, Alex. Everyone is complaining that there are no aerial shots of the overall fire perimeters, but I just saw on KVUE News Rick Perry's like flying all around with a camera, and cameras on him filming.
No, our Supreme Leader is airborne, and he is saving us. And don't worry, though, even more powerful, FEMA is here now taking over everything. And so why is Rick Perry not demanding that our state guard be returned? Well, they've got to grow opium.
Can you give any info on the letting the fires burn, like the fire in Bastrop and also the fire in Northeast Hays County, which is the one threatening us? It's the containment level numbers just keep switching and switching and switching. It's 40, it's 45, and it's 80, and now it's back down to 40.
Yeah, they were saying last time I checked what the Bastrop's 90% uncontained.
I just heard it was 100% uncontained.
Yeah, well, again, I heard 90, and then I've heard, point is, a 90% fire uncontained is 100% uncontained. When a fire's 40% uncontained, it's uncontained. And again, you've got fast driving winds, tinderbox everywhere. It is incredible, because this is not out west in Wyoming or Montana or something, this, where there's a town every 200 miles. This is the middle of little towns and people in big cities everywhere. And I've actually got a fellow talk show host who I can't even get on the air because he's busy trying to protect his house right now, who lives here in Austin, Texas. He's a frequent guest of this show, but I'll just leave it at that. We'll definitely get a report from him later. I mean, it's serious, folks. I have watched helicopters 2-3 miles away dropping water in big, huge yellow planes with props on them, dumping chemicals on fires from my house. It took me an hour to get into work today. It normally takes 30 minutes because of just emergency vehicles everywhere. And again, I would drive by and see 30 fire trucks lined up sitting there with news crews, and I don't know what they're doing. Well, I know what they're doing. They're waiting for FEMA to come give them orders and Rick Perry to give them orders. It's just incredible. They ought to just attack it. They ought to have bulldozer. Look, if the National Guard was here, it'd be bulldozer time. And they would have big bulldozers in there, picking fire lines, the wind, which way it's going. They'd be bulldozing that stuff in. They'd be cutting it. They'd be doing controlled burns right now. That's the only way to stop this. You got a 20-mile, in fact, it's bigger than that now. I was just watching the news. A 25-mile fire that's directly behind me, east of me, right here. It's just like Armageddon. And, all right. Anything else, Janice?
Just one last thing. My family are all firemen. My uncle was an arson investigator, et cetera. So I know, the thing to do is to get out and spray your roof. And I was spraying around the house and just got accosted by neighbors yelling at me that I was taking away the water for the fire.
See? Happened to you. Listen, I have a water well. And I've talked to neighbors who've been ninnied at for watering their yard. And I've had people stop when they see sprinklers going on my yard from the road. They live in the country, but up on the road, and try to tell me what to do. It's happened to my other neighbors. I've talked to them. Ladies and gentlemen, there's plenty of water in the aquifer, but as you said, you should be wetting your house down.
That's what my dad said to do.
Well, he's with Al-Qaeda, ma'am. He probably thinks we should have Gibson guitar in America. He probably thinks little kids can sell lemonade and not get arrested, or have garage sales or gardens in their yard. He's evil, ma'am. I mentioned in the last hour, neighbors will come over and say, hey, it's the wrong day of the week, don't water. I've talked to people who are a quarter mile away from fires and who are putting water on their plants, cutting brush back, and neighbors come over and say, the news say we're on total water restriction. You're only allowed to water once a week or once every 2 weeks. And again, it's this total ninny tattletale society. As the big mega corporations that are selling Central Texas water out just want to train you to sell you less water for more. The aquifers are full. Down behind my house, there is a, just 10 feet down, there's just a caved-in area in a field, and it's got fish all in it, and It's got a couple feet of spring water in it. That's how much water there is right under the surface. And the public is so disconnected from reality that they're training everybody, don't water, save water. I've got a 500-foot deep well. That's not deep at all. It never runs out. You can keep going thousands of feet. And you heard that poor woman. She's got the fire near her. She's out there watering her yard, watering, trying to keep the house wet. Oh, it's going to be a lot better if the fire comes and burns the whole neighborhood down, and then they've got to use hundreds of thousands of gallons to put it out? Or should you use a few hundred gallons and keep the fire from taking place? That's how stupid, and people don't know, a lot of them, where electricity comes from or where meat comes from in packages. They know nothing. But all over the news, they're like, do not water. We don't have enough water. The drought, the drought, the drought. And I went and looked at the actual facts. Imagine that, ladies and gentlemen. You don't want your house to burn down, and a neighbor runs over and says, don't water your yard. If you, a good friend of the show, and I'm not going to get into it until we know details, but is in an area that's being evacuated, and I know told us he's there battling to keep his home from burning down. And I know others this is happening to. Neighbors come over and say, you do not trim. And they have rules in Austin. You don't cut trees without permission. You've got to ask the government. You do not cut that dead tree. You do not trim back that brush. And you do not water. You let the house burn down because you don't have lemonade stands. You don't have garage sales. You don't have gardens in your yard. What, are prisoners in a prison allowed to do that? You are a prisoner of the New World Order. By the way, Utah legalizes gold, silver coins as currency. No, what's happening to Mr. Notehouse, though? He's a terrorist, the Justice Department says. Just like those evil terrorists at Gibson who were told, leave America. You can't make this stuff up. Sarah in Wyoming, an EMT fire, you're on the air. What's your view on what's happening?
Hi, Alex. I actually wanted to elaborate on one of your points about the dry timber standing everywhere. In addition to the record number of trees, we also have another problem called beetle kill. And everyone likes to say, oh, the only way the beetle kill will die is if we have our normal winters. But global warming is preventing all that from dying. That's not true. Beetle kill is naturally eradicated by fire. And your normal fire will burn through an area, take out all the dead, take out all the underbrush, and leave the living trees behind. But now that we've been putting out all these fires and not letting people cut any trees or anything like that, we're leaving all this dry tinder standing, and it kills off absolutely everything. So you have an entire forest wiped out when it shouldn't be that way.
That's right. Even here in Austin, you'll see in the piney woods and other areas where the trees that are green have sap in them so they don't burn, and only the underbrush is burning, and so it cleans things out, puts the nitrogen and other things back into the soil, and then it comes back much more healthy afterwards. But all over the country, they don't allow that stuff to be cut out or hauled away, so it's burning so hot, it's killing the living trees as well.
Wyoming actually just moved from Southern California, which is notorious for fires. Both California and Wyoming have the beetle kill problem. Here, you can buy a permit for $10 and go cut yourself a cord of wood, and each family can have up to 10 cords, and it's just dry, seasoned, standing. In California, you can't cut it, you can't touch it. You can't. Technically, you're not even supposed to be able to go off legal state-run trails or federal-run trails or campgrounds. So,
yeah, let's think about that. And I also have read in California, now they're starting it in Texas, they have these enviro cops that pull you over, and even if you paid for the wood or it's off your own land, they demand to see the permit. Now again, dead timber everywhere, standing up, laying down, you can't trim it. And then when there's a fire, it creates a deadly inferno.
now, Tehachapi, California, a plane crashed in the forest, and you've got 13,000 acres burned. This place hasn't burned in hundreds of years, and now you're going to see a whole city wiped out if the winds change.
It's the post-industrial world. You cannot let slaves do anything. Don't cut wood. Don't have lemonade stands. You're a prisoner in a supermax. We'll be right back. Stay with us.